Okay, there is a line in this movie that unfortunately I just could not find the clip for, but I never noticed it until last year. It's when they're talking to Billy, and he's like, Christmas just doesn't work out for me. And they're like, what does that even mean? And he's like, it just doesn't work out for me. And the kid literally goes, listen, I don't know if Christmas is going to work out for you or not this year, but you're getting off this train. Like, why was he so aggressive? Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today our movie in the middle is The Polar Express. The Polar Express is the adventurous and magical tale of a train full of kids traveling to the North Pole to see Santa Claus. It stars Tom Hanks, and yes, Josh Hutcherson. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm really excited to do this review. I meant to do it last year and then didn't. But it's all good because I got my lights, I got my PJs, I got this set up. So let's do this. So I will be honest, The Polar Express is one that I didn't really watch or like as a kid. I thought it was kind of weird looking. I never really watched it in full until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And now it is absolutely one of my top Christmas movies that I have to watch every year. But I have to watch it in just the right atmosphere. I have to have my colored lights on, my tree on. I gotta be in bed, cozied up in PJs. I gotta be devoted to this movie. Starting off with the highs, the visuals. And I know what you're gonna say. I'm not talking about the humans yet. I'm talking about pretty much everything else other than the motion capture. This movie is beautiful. The scale, the design of the landscapes, the production design, everything about this movie in terms of its look, aside from the people, is just gorgeous. And it just really makes it feel huge. Of course, starting off with the actual Polar Express coming onto this kid's street in this random neighborhood. I mean, just that visual alone is something so magical but so overwhelming and daunting. It's this perfect blend of like cozy Christmas but also kind of scary and adventurous. And that's what this movie is. This movie is actually just one giant roller coaster. And I mean that emotionally, but primarily I mean it literally. It feels like it's just one big giant car ride. It feels like it's one, I mean it kind of is, but it feels like it's one big roller coaster ride, specifically the part where they are kind of on a roller coaster. It's just the gigantic hills. It feels like almost like a simulator ride that you would ride in Universal Studios or Disney World, where it just feels like you're in this scene, this atmosphere, and you're just in it. It's so cool. I mean, the scene where they're stuck on the frozen lake and they have to get back on the tracks, and just as they're about to get into the water, it hits the tracks and just... You cannot tell me that is not a bomb-ass scene. And yes, even when they get to the North Pole, I know it looks oddly desolate and hollow and scary, but remember, just about all the elves are already outside. They are done. There's only a handful inside. You gotta think of this place as busy and bustling, and there's a lot of commotion going on. I just loved that it is like its own little city. It's not just like a factory or some ice cave. It is its own city. It's this cozy little cool town that's got all these stores, but of course it's also a factory. It's ginormous. I mean, this entire process of getting all these presents together for every kid in the world, that would take some space. So of course every space that's in the North Pole would have to be crucial. They would have to have, what the fuck? And yeah, it's a little bit weird that it feels kind of hollow and empty, but it also makes you feel like a kid again, exploring some giant places that you've never been to before. And who knows, maybe they exaggerated it on purpose to be even bigger than it would be, to kind of mimic how it would be to a kid exploring an unknown place. I don't know, it just brings me back to when I was a smaller child, and you know, you would get to these places where you're like, I'm just gonna explore every nook and cranny. I don't know what this is, but I'm gonna go everywhere. I'm gonna explore it. And then you get to be an adult and you're like, okay, this is just Target. But again, even in the factory in the North Pole, they have all of these scenes that are just incredible motion, and again, like it's a ride. And then outside, when they actually meet Santa, they genuinely made this feel like a huge once-in-a-lifetime experience that you would not want to miss. All these little traditions and processes that you're not really sure why they're doing it, but it's apparently something that they do every year, and it is familiar to them, just something that you would want to witness right down to Steven Tyler.
Rocking on top of the world, rocking on top of the world.
And I can't mention all of the technical aspects of this movie without bringing up Alan Silvestri's incredible score. It can be simultaneously grand and huge and magical, and also very soft and peaceful and emotional. Again, it makes me feel like a kid again. It genuinely brings me back to that really core memory feeling of being a kid on Christmas and coming down on Christmas morning, or it's more specifically on Christmas Eve. And it's weirdly a little sad, like kind of longing for that time, and that time's kind of past, but it's the good kind of sad, like reminiscent, kind of like, Inside Out. It's like there's happy sad. And that's all done just with the score. Plus, it also kind of gives, in some parts, like this Broadway vibe, especially with like the Hot Chocolate song. That is a very New York Broadway in the snow at Christmas time. Salvation Army every 4 blocks, people asking you for money that you don't have because you spent it on a Wii. It's kind of like that. And of course, Josh Groban.
And give your dreams the wings to fly.
But I will say, and I did talk about this in a previous video a couple of years ago, the Polar Express score feels very similar at the beginning of its main theme to the Elf score, which came out a year before that. Alan, H-Bomber Guy's gonna have some words with you. Now, more on the side of the story, a lot of people will say, and have said, that there's not really a whole lot to this movie, that it's a lot of fluff and padding the runtime. They're not necessarily wrong, but that's not a bad thing, because remember, this movie, its entire plot, is just the journey to the North Pole. It's a very simple, literal, just ride of a movie, so of course it's just going to be a lot of scenes where weird or funny or wacky things happen, and sure, it's not a lot of plot, like contrivances or very intricate things happening back and forth. It's just going to be kind of sensory things and things to visually see, and that's kind of the whole point of the movie. And I will defend the ticket flying scene until the day I die. I will die on this hill. Is it necessary? No, not really. Is it beautiful and peaceful and scenic and sensory? Hell yeah. I'm going to watch the crap out of that scene. And sure, maybe there's not a lot of plot necessarily, but there is a lot in the way of themes. It's got themes about childhood and innocence and belief and doubting and loss of childhood. I mean, this is not just about believing and knowing that you're in your childhood now, but about the parents. At the end, they can't hear the bell. That's one of the saddest things I've ever seen in a movie. And it's so small. It's such a really tiny detail. But it shows that you lose that. And it's like, it's really sad. I won't pretend to understand all of it or every scene.
Do you believe in ghosts?
But it's definitely not without its depth, and it doesn't completely go off the rails at any one point. True, it's not a ton intellectually or thematically, but where it lacks in those things, it makes up for in emotional and spiritual depth. Jeez, I'm talking about a Warner Brothers Kids animated movie, right? But I'm serious. I mean, when Billy, the only kid with a name apparently, when he comes back to his house and he's got a lit up tree and presents and he holds the box, I mean, come on. I know it's the really easy heartstrings to pull, but the most heartwarming things are the simplest things. Why Santa didn't give him presents before that? And finally, for my highs, of all the characters, the best character is the conductor. Now, watching as a kid, this has got to be the most annoying guy. He is always on you about being on time. He seems stressed all the time. He seems mean and aggressive. But as an adult, he's just doing his best. I love this guy so much. He is so relatable in terms of, like, we are either late or we are very late. But then the next thing you know, he's like busting out Broadway level moves.
You got chocolate. Hot, hot.
Who is this guy? But then, of course, at the end, you realize that the reason he is so strict and stern about everything is because that inner kid in him just wants to get to the North Pole like he does every year. And then right at the end, when he punches everybody's tickets and he's giving everybody, all the kids, their lessons and everything, he's so nice and heartwarming, but he's funny, and he comes out with this banger of a line.
It says...
No. It's nothing I need to know.
Okay, my only middle is the expected one, the humans. The motion capture wasn't great. I mean, it's been talked about before. The uncanny valley, they look so scary. Now, maybe it's because I have watched it a fair amount of times. I don't really notice it as much anymore. I don't really see the dead, soulless, Christmas-deprived eyes. So it's not really a low for me because it doesn't entirely take me out of the movie or anything. I've just kind of gotten used to it, but I will admit it's not the best. Although, is it just me, or does the main character with his sort of severe eyes and eyebrows kind of look like Bradley Cooper? Is that just me? My only low for the movie? This motherfucker. So overall, I absolutely adore this movie. A lot of other Christmas movies for me that I have seen, even before I saw this, like way before this one, there are so many that are on my list, and they are all staples for me. Most of them, though, are ones that I watch every year because of tradition, because I love them. I know every line, and I feel Christmassy. This one is just different. It just it's like a time machine, and it just takes me back. It's visually beautiful. It is story-wise, thematically, it's simple, but it's so effective. I love watching this every Christmas. A lot of people love this movie. A lot of people don't get it, or it's not for them, and I completely understand that. But for me, it's just wonderful and magical and childlike. Like, just the childlike wonder of Christmas. I'm going to give The Polar Express a 4 out of 4. Making it my next top shelf movie. Guys, I don't know what it is with holiday movies, but they're always like a 4 out of 4. I have to very much pick next year some really bad holiday movies. Well, guys, let me know what you think of The Polar Express in the comments below, and I hope you have a really, really great Christmas. I hope you're with your loved ones. I hope you get a lot of great gifts. I wish just a ton of socks for you. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and Christmas right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.